The great outdoors is breathtaking, but it doesn't forgive mistakes. Some adventurers head out seeking beauty and challenge, only to meet horrors they never imagined. In this video, we're diving into part 2 of the worst real-life deaths in outdoor adventures. Stories where nature, human error, or cruel chance turned epic journeys into tragic nightmares. And yes, we've got the proof. In October 2018, 29-year-old Jordan Grider, an experienced outdoorsman from Moriarty, New Mexico, set out on what would be his most ambitious journey yet. His plan? To camp alone through the brutal winter in northern Minnesota's remote Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment adventure. This was something Jordan had been preparing for his entire adult life. Jordan wasn't your average guy. He was the third of 6 brothers and had spent more than a decade mastering survival skills in the wilds of Kentucky and upstate New York. He didn't consider himself homeless. He said he had a home, but simply preferred to live outside. Off-grid living, self-reliance, and solitude weren't just hobbies for Jordan. They were his way of life. In September 2018, he celebrated his birthday with family. A month later, he headed into the Minnesota wilderness alone. He brought with him gear, supplies, and the mindset to survive one of the harshest winters in the U.S. His family, familiar with his independent streak, still couldn't help but worry. On October 8th, Jordan sent them a photo of a peaceful beaver pond near his chosen camp. It was the last time they'd ever hear from him. Later that month, Jordan's white truck was found parked near a locked gate along the Sioux Hustler Trail, packed with supplies. Local authorities, concerned by the lack of communication, began searching. But with winter closing in fast, conditions quickly became too treacherous to continue. The snow buried the trail and the truth. Then, in April 2019, as the snow finally began to melt, conservation officer Sean Williams stumbled across a haunting sight. On a remote, south-facing slope, he found a primitive campsite. A hammock hung under a green tarp. Blood stained the sleeping bag beneath it. A loaded 9mm Beretta pistol lay nearby, untouched. Around the camp, there were wolf tracks and scat, but no sign of Jordan. As the thaw continued, investigators uncovered more. Scattered across the area were fragments of Jordan's remains, 12 bones in total. His skull was never found. The scene offered more questions than answers. The campsite appeared hastily assembled. The tarp and hammock were intact, suggesting there hadn't been a struggle. The blood, however, told a different story. This was no minor injury. One theory suggested a wolf attack. His mother, Rebecca Grider, believed Jordan may have been ambushed in his sleep, but researchers, including wolf expert Thomas Gable, were skeptical. Fatal wolf attacks in Minnesota are virtually unheard of, and the condition of the campsite didn't align with the chaos such an attack would cause. Another possibility was a tragic accident. Jordan was known to keep his knives razor sharp. Some speculated he might have cut himself severely, perhaps while carving or shaving. Makeshift bandages were found near the tent, hinting at an attempt to treat an injury, but no bloody knife was ever located, and the sheer volume of blood in the hammock suggested the wound was far more than a small slip. Foul play officially ruled out, but the untouched gun and absence of defensive injuries left a sliver of doubt. Some even floated bizarre theories. Mythical creatures like Sasquatch or the Wendigo were mentioned online. These ideas stayed in the realm of speculation, never supported by evidence. In May 2019, Jordan's family visited the site. It was a somber journey. Rebecca noted that there were no wood shavings around the camp. Strange, since Jordan was always carving something. To her, this suggested he'd only spent one night there. Despite cadaver dogs and intensive searches, most of Jordan's remains were never found. The case was eventually closed, with no conclusive cause of death. But for those who knew and loved him, the mystery still lingers. Was Jordan the victim of nature, an accident, or something we may never understand? In the early morning hours of July 6, 2021, the peaceful town of Ovando, Montana, nestled beside the Blackfoot River, became the scene of a chilling and tragic encounter. 65-year-old Leah Davis Loken, a retired nurse from Chico, California, met an apex predator face-to-face and sadly didn't survive. Leah was no stranger to adventure. She had a deep love for the outdoors and was known among her friends and family as a passionate cyclist. That summer, she set out on a long-distance ride along the Great Divide mountain bike route, a journey she had been planning for months. Her route took her through remote and scenic stretches of the American West, eventually bringing her to the tiny town of Ovando, population fewer than 100. It's known for its rustic charm, but more ominously, it's also on the edge of grizzly bear territory. The nearby Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex is home to nearly 1,000 grizzlies. Leah arrived in Ovando with her sister and a friend, and while they chose to stay at a nearby hotel for the night, Leah opted instead to camp outdoors. She pitched her tent behind the local museum, joined by a Texas couple camping nearby. At around 3 a.m., Leah and the other campers were jolted awake by the sounds of something large moving through the campsite. A grizzly bear, later weighed at 417 pounds, was right outside their tents. Leah could hear it breathing, hear the low, huffing sounds it made as it passed near her head. The group sprang into action, making noise to scare it off, and it worked. The bear vanished into the darkness. Cautious but calm, Leah took steps to reduce any attractants. She removed food items, packaged snacks and dry lentils, from her tent and placed them in a nearby building. She even kept bear spray close at hand before returning to her tent. When offered another chance to retreat to the safety of the hotel, Leah declined. The stars, the peace, this was the wilderness experience she loved, but she missed something. Inside her tent were 2 toiletry bags, ones she had previously used to store dried blueberries. The scent still lingered. Just 10 feet away, her bike held food in its saddlebags, yet another tempting aroma for a hungry bear. Less than an hour later, at about 4 a.m., the grizzly returned. This time, it didn't hesitate. The bear tore into Leah's tent and launched a brutal attack. The Texas couple awoke to the chaos. The man could see the bear pouncing on Leah's tent and desperately sprayed his bear deterrent, shouting to scare it off. But the damage had already been done. Leah was killed almost instantly, her neck broken and spine severed. Wildlife officials later concluded that the bear had likely been food conditioned, a dangerous behavior in which bears associate humans with food after scavenging garbage or campsites. It had likely targeted Leah because of the lingering food scents and her movements inside the tent. 3 days later, the same bear raided a chicken coop near Ovando. Wildlife agents tracked and euthanized it. DNA tests confirmed it was the same bear responsible for Leah's death. The tragedy sparked urgent conversations about outdoor safety in bear country. Investigators stressed the importance of proper food storage, eliminating scented items from tents, and always carrying and knowing how to use bear spray. Most importantly, they urged campers, if a bear approaches, don't just go back to sleep in the same spot. Move, seek shelter in a building or vehicle. Leah Davis Loken's death was heartbreaking and rare, but it serves as a powerful reminder. In bear country, the line between adventure and danger can be razor thin. The Red Valley of Peru is a place of stunning contrasts. Rolling hills painted in deep reds and lush greens, sculpted by mineral-rich soil and thousands of years of geological history. For nature lovers, it's a dream. For adventurers, a challenge. But in November 2024, for Gabriella Basalo, it became the setting of an unimaginable tragedy. Gabriella, originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina, was 32 years old. As a teenager, she moved to Santiago, Chile, where she built a full and vibrant life. She had a 10-year-old son and had recently married the love of her life, Samuel Sierra. A creative soul with a practical side, Gabriella had studied cosmetology and aesthetics and worked as a freelance makeup artist. At the same time, she'd been involved in logistics for a dried fruit company since 2020. Friends described her as spirited, artistic, and adventurous. In late October 2024, Gabriella and Samuel set off on a much-anticipated trip to Peru. Their goal, to take in the breathtaking sights, soak up the local culture, and challenge themselves with some real outdoor adventure. On November 1st, they joined a group hike to the Red Valley, a remote, high-altitude area near the famous Rainbow Mountain in the Pitumarca district. The Red Valley sits over 5,200 meters above sea level. It's beautiful, but not easy. The trails are rugged, the air thin, and the weather unpredictable. Still, the group pressed on, hiking through the alien-like terrain of the valley, surrounded by vivid red and green mountains that looked like something from another planet. As the day wore on and the group began their descent, the weather began to shift. What started as a light drizzle quickly turned to a mix of rain and snow. Conditions worsened rapidly. What Gabriella and Samuel didn't know was that a powerful storm was moving in fast. Then came the moment that changed everything. As the group continued down the mountain, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck. It hit Gabriella directly, killing her instantly. The force of the strike left her with severe burns and threw Samuel to the ground, injuring him. Their guide, Ephraim Zamora Galindo, acted quickly to alert authorities, but the worsening weather made rescue efforts nearly impossible. With snow and rain battering the mountainside, responders had no choice but to wait. Gabriella's body remained on the mountain overnight. The following morning, emergency crews reached the site and recovered Gabriella's remains. She was transported to the morgue in the town of Sicuani, near Cusco. Samuel was taken to the hospital for treatment. An investigation was opened, but the cause of death was tragically clear: a direct lightning strike, a rare and deadly hazard in high-altitude regions like the Red Valley. Shockingly, this was the second lightning-related death in Peru that month, underscoring just how dangerous the weather can be in these elevated landscapes. The region's beauty is deceptive. Beneath the painted hills lies a sky capable of turning deadly without warning. Back in Chile, the news of Gabriella's death devastated her family. Her sister, Florencia, expressed deep sorrow, sharing that she wished she had told Gabriella more often how much she loved her. The only comfort was knowing that Gabriella had spent her final days doing something she loved, with someone she loved, in a place she'd always dreamed of visiting. Gabriella's young son now faces a future without his mother, a heart-wrenching reminder of the risks hidden behind nature's most breathtaking scenes. Her story is a sobering example of how quickly beauty can turn to tragedy in the great outdoors. In the summer of 2019, Lucas Fowler and Shinna Dees set off on what was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime. The couple, young and in love, were exploring the wild beauty of Canada together, armed with a sense of wonder, a restored van, and a deep passion for travel. But their journey, meant to celebrate life and connection, ended in tragedy. Lucas, 23, was from Sydney, Australia. He was the fourth child in a tight-knit family and had grown up outdoors, riding dirt bikes, camping, and soaking in every bit of adventure he could find. After backpacking around the world for 2 years, he met Chinna in Croatia. She was 24, from North Carolina, and just as adventurous as Lucas. The youngest in her family, Chinna was known for her kindness and curiosity. They bonded quickly over their shared love for life, exploration, and each other. After spending Christmas together in the U.S., Lucas returned to Canada, where he worked on a remote ranch. From there, they planned a 10-day road trip through British Columbia in Lucas's pride and joy, a restored 1986 blue Chevrolet van. They were chasing beauty, serenity, and freedom. On July 14th, they ran into some car trouble. Their van broke down along the Alaska Highway, about 20 kilometers south of Liard Hot Springs, a remote but scenic area in northern British Columbia. Despite the setback, they didn't let it ruin the moment. Passers-by later recalled seeing the couple smiling, sharing a picnic, and appearing relaxed as they worked on the van. They seemed carefree, in love, and totally in their element. But the next day, July 15th, everything changed. A highway worker named Trevor Pierre discovered their lifeless bodies in a ditch near the van. They were found about 5 meters apart, both with visible gunshot wounds. The back doors of their van were wide open and the windows had been smashed. It was immediately clear this was no accident. It was a brutal, cold-blooded double murder. Authorities struggled for 3 days to identify the victims because of the severity of their injuries. When their names were finally released, shockwaves rippled across Canada and around the world. Lucas's parents flew to Canada, heartbroken. His father, Stephen Fowler, a senior detective in New South Wales, was torn between his professional understanding of violent crime and the unbearable pain of losing his son. Chinna's family in North Carolina was devastated too, remembering her as joyful, kind, and full of light. As investigators dug deeper, the story took a chilling turn. Just 4 days after Lucas and Chinna were killed, the body of Leonard Dyke, a 64-year-old university lecturer, was discovered 470 kilometers away. His truck had been set on fire. The suspects? 2 teenagers, Con McLeod, 18, and Briar Schmigelski, 19, from Port Alberni, British Columbia. They had initially been reported missing but were quickly linked to all 3 murders. A massive manhunt followed, stretching across 3 provinces and capturing international media attention. The teens stole Dyke's car and drove it more than 3,000 kilometers east to Gillam, Manitoba. On August 7th, after weeks of searching, police found their bodies in the woods. Both had died by suicide. For Lucas and Chinna's families, the discovery offered closure, but no comfort. The randomness of the crime only made it more horrific. 2 vibrant young lives, full of promise, had been stolen without reason. At their funerals, Lucas and Chinna were remembered not for how they died, but for how they lived, boldly, lovingly, and together. Footage from a gas station days before their murder shows them smiling, embracing, and cleaning their van side by side. It's a heartbreaking yet beautiful final image of 2 souls doing what they loved, together. On June 30th, 2019, Austin Howell, a fearless and widely respected free solo climber, set out for another daring climb at Shortoff Mountain in North Carolina's Linville Gorge. Known for his ascents without ropes or harnesses, Austin approached the day with the same intensity and purpose that defined his life. But by late morning, that mountain bore witness to a tragic fall that would claim the life of a climber who never played it safe. Austin wasn't someone who blended in. Born in Friendswood, Texas, he discovered climbing at 19 while attending the University of Houston. Almost immediately, it became more than a hobby. It was his obsession, his therapy, his calling. In 2008, he survived a 35-foot fall at an indoor climbing gym that fractured multiple bones and vertebrae and left him with a traumatic brain injury. That injury would become a lifelong battle, affecting his mood and mental health. But instead of pulling away from the sport, Austin leaned in harder. Climbing became the thing that helped him quiet the noise in his head. Eventually, he left college to pursue climbing full-time and fully embraced free soloing, climbing sheer rock faces with no safety equipment whatsoever. His skill was remarkable and his commitment unmatched. He would often complete dozens of climbs in a single day, choosing routes that would terrify even seasoned professionals. To Austin, this wasn't about recklessness. It was about clarity. Climbing stripped life down to its purest form, one move at a time. That Sunday, photographer Ben Wu joined Austin as he tackled familiar routes like Dopey Duck and Golden Rule. After Ben left, Austin continued on. Witnesses later saw him near the steepest part of a tough climb, possibly the route known as Energizer. Dressed in his signature tie-dye and cap, Austin made a dynamic move toward a flake, a risky maneuver by any standard. Suddenly, something went wrong. A scream cut through the air. He fell 80 feet. Climbers Collins and Massey rushed to the scene, rappelling down to reach him. Massey tried CPR, but the injuries were catastrophic. Emergency responders arrived about 90 minutes later and pronounced him dead around 1:30 p.m. Officials would later describe that section of the mountain as extremely technical, where even the slightest mistake or a broken hold could prove fatal. For those who knew him, the shock of his death came with a haunting familiarity. His mother, Terry Zinga Jackson, had long feared this outcome. especially after his earlier injuries, which doctors said compromised his balance and hearing. But Austin was relentless. He'd even cut off his neck brace and casts to get back on the rock within weeks of recovery. Through his blog and social media, Austin didn't just showcase climbs, he shared his soul. He spoke candidly about mental health, risk, and the fragile balance between passion and danger. Life is an inherently dangerous sport, he often said, a mantra that summed up how he lived. Tributes poured in from climbers across the world. To them, Austin wasn't just a climber, he was a mentor, a friend, and a symbol of unapologetic, raw courage.